it's just insane. If I think back to the Atlantic, to do a live feed like this, it's just nuts, isn't it?
It's wild. It's been quite a bizarre experience, to be honest. Like doing the live streams and having even just being able to FaceTime weather routers or team doctors or things like that. It's it happens, and then it's a funny thing. I think we're all a bit conflicted by it because in one way it's amazing. It's incredible to have these really cool conversations literally in the middle of the Pacific, but you go away from it and it's like, yeah, I suppose you leave the boat and then you have to come back to the boat.
Yeah.
And that process can be, sometimes it's incredibly uplifting, sometimes it's not, and I think it just depends on how we're feeling at the time, whether we're fueled, hydrated well, and
I think it's also the person you're chatting to.
Yeah.
I think if the person gets where you're at, it makes it a lot easier. But if they don't, then it's a bit more challenging. But yeah, crazy,
for sure.
crazy.
It looks like it's pretty rolly seas you're in at the moment. That's I mean, you've obviously you've properly got your sea legs by this point, but I can see in the background that horizon going sort of 30 degrees left to right. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. We're I think we're concerned about our land legs, how long it's going to take to get them back. I know we're currently, so we're about a couple hundred miles from the Marquesas. So we've been in open ocean for the last it's a bit under 4,000 miles. So that's like 54 days. And then, but we want to try and get around the south end of the most southerly Marquesa Island, just so we don't lose the current. So our waypoint, our first waypoint, we're having to pinch probably like, I don't know, 15, 20 degrees further upwind than is comfortable. So it's a little bit beamy today. But exciting to be nearing our first bit. Well, I think we will see them. We'll see the Marquesas, which is quite exciting. I mean, hopefully we don't suddenly think, no, scrap this,
I know.
abandon ship.
But seeing anything is so unusual when you're out there. I see that you spotted a ship on the horizon, a red sail. And I mean, I know for people who have never lost sight of shore before, it's hard to imagine, it's big waves, little waves, the odd flying fish. And then, if you see a ship on the horizon or, an island, it's so alien, isn't it? It's just like, this is not part of the landscape I'm used to.
Yeah, and I think that was exaggerated by, we saw quite a few, maybe saw half a dozen in the first couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Then for probably over a month, we didn't see anything. Not a single boat. And we haven't seen a single plane either. So I think the sort of isolation of like, we're the only ones out here is being definitely, it's definitely exaggerated by that. And so when you do see, as you say, when you do see we all got quite excited. Lachlan was frantically waving at the back because they came, between a quarter and a half a mile to our stern. And we were like, it's so cool to have, like, maybe they'll come alongside. We can have like a weird interaction. We can maybe get out the bagpipes. But no, it wasn't to be. They clearly, I mean, I think we forget how low we are in water. And
but I'm surprised they didn't hear you on the VHF. I'm surprised they didn't get you on the radio.
Yeah, we tried them, but I suppose maybe they didn't even have the radio on. They weren't expecting to see anyone.
For sure. I mean, I remember in the Atlantic, and the Atlantic's obviously tiny compared to what you're doing. Seeing a lot of ships in the first 2-3 days heading down towards Cape Verde, and then as soon as we sort of slungshot into the Atlantic proper, away from the islands, it's just nothing. It's just absolutely nothing.
Yeah,
and it's interesting, and it's interesting thinking back. When was that? Like 13 years ago. And the only way we could communicate, unless we used the satellite phone, was on sat phone text messages. And I mean, that's like proper old fashioned text messaging where you're limited to 100 odd characters. So I still can't go over this. Is absolutely nuts. And I think I think that point about sort of coming in and out of the boat and sharing it. I mean, obviously, there is so many people watching your journey. There's so many people excited about it, but it's quite hard to sort of conceptualize that when you're on the boat, when you're on expedition. I was at an event on Friday night, and a friend from Edinburgh, Tim Garrett. I don't know if you know Tim. He said he was flying back from uh, Korea. He was flying across the Pacific, and he said he was WhatsApping me from the plane, and he said, "Down there somewhere is the Maclean boys. They're down there somewhere." He said, "I'm looking down. I'm trying to find them," and he's obviously at like 30,000 foot or something. But like, it's just that sort of abstract thought that people are flying over you and like thinking,
Yeah.
"Wow, you're in a boat down there." And then he came back, and we were sharing a whiskey, and he was saying, "When they're back, we've got to get the boat out in the islands of the West Coast." And it was inspiring conversations, and you don't know any of that. You're just out there pulling on the oars,
Yeah.
creating these conversations, which is so cool.
It's funny, yeah. I mean, we've been very lucky. We've got an amazing like short team that you know, the handling all the kind of a lot of the comms and stuff. So you know, we're sending footage. We're doing a daily ship's log. So we take it in turns, and it's just like a daily update. And you know, as you can imagine, some days there's externally nothing changes. So
Yeah.
then you have to go a little bit more internal, get slightly philosophical, and but no, it's been really fun. It's actually been a really enjoyable way of kind of sharing.
It's funny, your friend in the play, Mark, reminds us. So, like, not that long ago, you know, we calculated that the closest people to us would be the people in the International Space Station as they went overhead.
Yeah.
We weren't entirely sure which blinking dot that would be, but and we thought, how funny would it be? I mean, it was more of a pie in the sky dream that if they knew we were down there and we knew they were up there, we could wave at each other. But it's that funny thing, you know. Yeah, you
It's
don't
it's
really.
it's
Yeah,
it's and it's just that sense of space again. If you've never been out there, just with weeks and weeks and weeks and now months of
yeah,
blue horizons. I remember it's not the same thing at all, but I remember on the round the world cycle the second time where it got to the point where there was that level of interest to be a part
yeah,
of the journey. I had to put out a message to say, actually, I can't keep I can't keep sort of jumping in and out of this reality. Like I'm racing,
yeah,
I'm riding hard, I'm sleep deprived, I'm pushing it. And then every time people became a part of the conversation and joined me, they were just super excited. But then I was suddenly the entertainment, I was the ambassador, and I was sort of having to explain myself and think back and dream forwards and project. And actually, when you're on expedition,
oh,
you're just in that moment. And I put out a
totally,
message. I think I was coming down through Alaska down to Yukon, and I put a message out on social media and said, "Look, can people just support from the roadside? I just can't 20 times a day go into
yeah,
these amazing conversations like I'm on stage explaining the trip." And I got some
yeah,
pushback. I got some people sort of saying how selfish you should be sharing the ride. I'm like 2 months in. I'm like racing 16 hours a day.
yeah,
And Laura, my performance manager, Laura Penhole,
yeah,
she was like, she'd worked with all these Olympians, and she said, I would never have my Olympians running their race
yeah,
with followers running alongside them going, "How are you doing? You having a good day?" Like there's always that space. She was like, that's nuts. In the high performance world, you
yeah,
just would never have your Olympian just going, chat, chat, chat. Oh, let me do
really,
my race. So she was like, she was always trying to protect me, but I was always like, well, it's an adventure, and I'm flattered that so many people want to be a part of it. Uh, and so it's always getting that fine balance. Now it's totally different when you're offshore and you've
yeah.
got technology, but it's still that sense that it's a deeply personal journey. It's kind of what happens between
Oh,
your ears and
yeah. No, you're like so right. I think I think what you were saying, like, you know, when you're on the bike, really, all you can really deal with is, you know, the here and now, how you're feeling. And like, you know, we found the routine. I mean, I imagine, you know, with probably a lot of your expeditions, but around the world, your routine must have been like clockwork. And it's like that on here. You know, we as soon as we stray from it, that's when we start feeling crap, because it's when
yeah.
hydration, you know, goes to pot or fueling goes to pot, and we just, yeah, we all we can really deal with is what we're doing right now, and getting that right. Actually, 2 days ago, we've got a fishing rod, so we've been fishing a bit,
You
with
got the
some luck.
Wahoo.
yeah, we got the
Oh, we got the
Wahoo.
Wahoo. It was like 50 minutes, almost an hour of playing it, and then we got it alongside, and it like It was
It was
it was
huge.
it was huge. It like wrapped around the center board. We were like,
Yeah.
okay, this is definitely gonna snap the line, and then managed to get the center board out. Boats like crashing about, and then yeah, got it alongside. Ewan with the boat hook goes in, gets it, brings up this thing which is literally like 2/3 the size of him, like
It's
in
nuts.
length. Like
And,
1.4 meters.
I mean, I saw the photograph, I read the blog post, but
Yeah.
I kind of don't know what happened next. How do you cook that thing? I mean, gutting that must have been a hell of a
Oh,
mess on the boat.
I'm, as you can imagine, trying to fillet a giant fish on a rolling boat where there's like no real flat surface. But
Oh
we
gosh.
got two really nice big fillets off it, and I mean again, it's like just remarkable the technology. A quick like YouTube as to how do you fillet a wahoo. So followed a bit of a tutorial, which was very useful because there's certain parts you want to try and avoid, like the belly meat. There might be parasites, things like that. But we then had like 60 like small fist-sized medallions of just of just wagyu meat, which you know, with all the goodwill in the world and three starving boys, it was a struggle to get through. I have to say, but it was good. I mean,
Brilliant.
we ate extremely well for a couple of days, and
That's
we're actually
hilarious. It looks amazing. I never knew what Wahoo was. Like a Wahoo's a cycling brand. It's like a Wahoo's a cycling computer. So
Yeah.
when you posted that, and I was like, oh, I know what Wahoo is now. And on what an amazing looking fish. I'd never seen anything like it in my life.
Yeah. Kind of like a giant mackerel.
yeah.
Genuinely, we thought it was maybe a Spanish mackerel initially, but yeah, I
Yeah.
mean we didn't know what they looked like either. So no, it was. But then I think the point I was making that even it was so exciting, and but it was like 3 hours of like playing the fish, bringing it on board, filleting, and then suddenly the routine's to pot, and you're like, oh, I'm dehydrated, and it's no, it's fun. It's
Yeah.
funny. You become a routinal creature, that's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And then if you suddenly do something because, the adrenaline's going, you've got fish to get and food, it's great, but then you kind of pay for it later. You're sort of finely tuned between that sort of,
Exactly.
energy to do what you need to do, but also you're pushing yourself hard as well and that recovery. So
Yeah.
if you suddenly do something which is a bit out of your routine, you kind of pay for it later, don't you? And talking about
I
food,
know.
how are these things working out?
Yeah, they were actually going down a treat. I mean, it was a lot. It was a lot of work. I'll be honest. In the lead up to it, just seemed we seem to have a habit of trying to probably do more than we can manage, and take on a few too many different elements. But I'm glad we did. I'm glad we did because it was a lot of work and there was a lot of testing involved, and there was a lot of sleepless nights where I was convinced that the food was all going to go off within like a week or two. Um,
It looks pretty good. I've got the so what have I got here? I've got the veg chili and black rice. Is that going down well?
Oh,
Is there
nice. Yeah.
yeah,
We've got exactly the same.
we've actually
We're
dug
gonna
up.
we're gonna
super?
So have you?
And I like you boys have done exactly the right thing because my memories of the Atlantic roll was just a bunch of stuff that I don't care how long you cook that for.
Yeah.
I don't care how long like the worst was the lamb tagine. That would never rehydrate. And to this day, if somebody offered me a lamb tagine, I'm like, never again. Because it was just
yeah,
like dog food. It was just the
yeah,
worst.
Yeah, I mean, I think but looking back on our Atlantic experience, like we ate pretty well. Like we tried to go with the freeze dried food brands that
Yeah.
we tested them a lot, and ones that were maybe lower on the calorie side but higher on the nutrition side, and
Yeah.
ultimately tasted better because I think the three of us, we're all quite we love our food, and if it doesn't taste good, we're less likely to eat it. If we're less likely to eat it, then what's the point of having it?
And
Um,
al- and also I think people don't realize when you're on exped you get taste fatigue. You think you're going to want sweet stuff, but like you actually just you sort of crave savory and salt because
yeah,
you know
yeah,
you're pushing yourself all the time. So it's really kind of important not to just get so sick of your food that you can barely touch it, even though you need it. And
yeah.
yeah, it cracks me up that you had sleepless nights and you were working like a dog making freeze dries food, and then you packed like two hairbands or whatever you did. So like you're like incredibly, incredibly well prepared on one side, and then just like forgot to pack the air
Disaster.
pan.
Disasters on another. Yeah, definitely.
Mark, is your freeze dry food? Is it have you rehydrated it, or is it still to be?
Yeah, I'm well prepared. I came off the oars a while ago, so I had time. Yeah,
Is
no,
it?
no, mine's good. Mine's good. Are you just making yours up?
Ours is good to go. Ours is good to go.
I'm gonna give it a try. It's always kind of weird for the viewer, like those cookery programs when people are trying to politely eat on screen and it always just ends up in a complete mess. So
Yes.
you're always trying to sort of,
So yeah,
if
so
you've
this
ever
is veggie
what we
veggie
got.
chili. We have them with like a variety of rice. You've got the black rice. I think we've got one with whole grain, which actually is a real nice because we don't have that many different types of meals. We've got veggie chili, meat chili, a whole bunch of curries, and a Thai sweet potato and pastas. The pastas have worked an absolute treat.
Yeah, I can
Um,
imagine.
they're just it's like the highlight of the day almost. We're
And what do you
rapidly
reckon?
running out.
And what do you reckon you're putting in here in terms of calories?
What's it? So I think you've got maybe a half portion. I
Uh-huh.
think full portion it's about 800 to 850 calories
Yeah.
for a full meal, and that's the veggie
Wow.
one. The meat ones we managed to get. They've just got a higher calorie content with the fats and stuff. So the meat meals we've got, they're about 1,000 calories each, and so the curries with a little dollop of mango chutney. I tell you, it'll take on Mother India or the likes.
There's some good spice in this. What have you got in there? There's some great flavors.
So so you've got the main spice is like a chipotle chili paste.
Nice.
Um, Chipotle chili paste, and then there's some fresh chili as well. You've got black
That's
beans,
good.
haricot beans, a base of like peppers and red peppers and tomatoes and onions, and then I think a tiny little bit of dark chocolate for depth.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
but yeah, the key is you get these little jars of like they're called Lanchito chipotle paste. You get them in most supermarkets. It's like a smoky chili. And it just adds that. It just elevates it.
No, seriously, you guys could go into business when you came back. That's a cut above. That's a cut above. I'm being slightly unfair to you guys because I'm having mine with a gin and tonic.
Yeah, having a gin tonic. No, we're glad. We're glad.
But no,
It
they're
goes it goes beautifully together. Absolutely beautiful.
Does it? Oh, we'll imagine it.
fizzy drinks. I've been really craving a fizzy drink, like a cold, crisp fizzy drink.
What? Mark,
How's the desalinator working?
Yeah, it's working well. The unit itself is working well. We've had what have we had? We've had a couple of pipes bursting.
Yeah.
So just switch it on and not coming out the outlet. So quickly turn it off and try and find the leak. Yeah, the
Yeah.
main issue we've had with with the water is basically we've got a big it's like a 75-liter water bladder which is
Yeah.
in the under the floor in the bow cabin, and it's we discovered a leak. So
Oh
it's
no.
leaking along one of the seams. It's just we don't know why, but it's degraded and it's got multiple holes. So yeah, we've been madly trying to figure that out because obviously we can only run the water maker when the sun is out,
Yeah.
ideally early in the day. So we need to be able to store the water, and we've got backup storage space, but that's kind of our like emergency ration for if we couldn't produce water for a day or two, we would have 30 liters kind of on standby. So we're
And do you
we're
have
we're
any
addressing
do
it.
you, do you have any freshwater ballast on the boat, or is it just drinking water?
We've just got these spare containers, so we don't have any
Okay.
bottled water. I think in hindsight we probably would have brought some.
The boat was just
It was just so rammed. We had so
Yeah,
much
I'm sure.
stuff. So yeah, so we're kind of we're problem solving.
we're managing it with
Yeah.
with the spare containers, and Ewan's repaired the main tank, and it seems to be working now. So
Yeah.
we've got water in that, and we've filled up our reserve containers. And it's just like as with anything, it's just keeping on top of it. and not letting it slip, because like as soon as it slips, then we're like, oh, we haven't got enough water, and then everything cascades away.
Yeah.
Mark,
Or-
I'm going to swap with you, and he's been slogging away on the oars. It's been an absolute pleasure. Very surreal. Very surreal to chat. So
it's all
nice. It's so funny to think back to like 6 years ago when we first started thinking about rowing the Atlantic. I
that's
think
right.
you were the first person we spoke to get advice on whether to do it or not and how to do it well. And so yeah, really, you're responsible
This is
for
your fault.
I'm not
but
sure.
it's been
I'm
so
not sure what I'm not sure what
and
advice I gave you. It was don't capsize. Um,
yeah.
but look, boys, Jim, have a good shift, and it's amazing to see you. Keep up the amazing work. Yeah, and it's
Yeah,
funny.
it's
I remember that first conversation when you were talking about it, and like I was talking about when things go right, when things go wrong.
yeah,
Obviously, my Atlantic adventure didn't exactly end perfectly, but learned a
yeah.
hell of a lot from it, and it was such an amazing space to explore. And yeah, I mean, I don't know, like in terms of the space, does the Pacific feel a whole lot different in terms of climate and water, or is it kind of feel like a bigger version of the same?
Yeah, I would say it's a lot hotter. It's
Okay,
like
yeah,
humidity levels have been really like the cabins at night, especially initially, it's starting to cool a little bit as we go further south. But yeah, it's
yeah,
been really hot, sweltering cabins. Sea state, I would say, maybe overall, it's slightly it's a bigger swell, so it's like bigger rolling waves. We've had predominantly like a southerly swell, like especially initially it was very southerly, beam on, and then as we've got further out, the wind swell has kind of carried it. But yeah, I would say not too dissimilar. I think we've not had anything over kind of I'd say 4 meter waves so far. So we've not had anything that spicy. I think when we get past the Marquesas, it's just a little bit more varied, and I think we'll have, there'll be some channels of more wind, current. I think for us psychologically, we'll have like a milestone each week, and it will be a bit more varied. So I think it'll be more exciting and potentially with some bigger conditions as well.
How are we
yeah,
doing,
big
Mark?
seas. Hey,
Yeah.
there he is. I'm good, mate. You were putting in a good shift there.
Oh yeah, it's pretty rough conditions today, to be honest. We've got it's quite a lot of weather on the beam. I'm sure the guys have explained, but just trying to get past the south end of the Marquesas means we're having to put in a bit of a shift. So when it's just one on the oars, it's particularly tough.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's all right. Enjoying it.
Mark,
I
I've
mean,
got a
like,
question.
it's interesting on a like obviously watching on a static cam like this because you really see the horizon. You're on the boat, so you probably don't feel it as well. But on a static
Yeah.
cam, that horizon movement is amazing to watch in the background.
Yeah.
That's all the boat, obviously rocking side to side. The waves are probably only about 2 meters at the moment. But they're quite sharp.
Yeah,
We've got quite a lot of wind with them as well. So they're these kind of wind-driven things that are really, they cause the boat to sway quite a lot. And obviously, you've experienced it, I'm sure, where you've really got to manage those oars, stop yourself from smashing your shins or catching an
yeah.
oar or whatever.
Well, and I can see from the Saltire that the wind's coming off the beam as well. So when it must be a bit. I don't know which way's the sea coming. Have you got a following sea and then
Going
a
with the
side
wind.
wind? Oh, with the
It's
wind. Okay.
mostly coming with the wind. It's kind of, yeah, I guess a bit of a mix. We've had a lot of kind of northbound waves, and then I'd say the wind direction predominantly has been kind of southwest, quite often
Southeast.
just a
Yeah.
southeast. Sorry, quite often just a southerly, which
It's
those
it's
two
funny.
together is just real pain.
Yeah. It's funny how obsessed you get about these things. I suddenly zoomed out and realized that somebody's going to watch this at some point. And like, if you care about these things, you really care about them. But I remember coming back from my cycle around the world and I was obsessed. Whenever I stepped out, I would like look around at branches or flags and I was like obsessed with wind direction.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because that was my everything on the bike and everything it was about wind direction. And then after a while, Nikki, my wife, said, it doesn't matter which way the wind's going. And I was like, but it is, but it's, but it really does. So I'm very
Yeah.
conscious that the people watching this are going, shut up, guys, stop talking about the bloody wind.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's everything,
it's
as you say.
it's a bizarre thing. We were actually talking about it just this morning. How farmers must have an amazing appreciation for weather and be so aware of how it's going to affect the crops. But in a lot of ways, they've got that they're dependent on clouds and sun coming at the right times. But I think for us, I've definitely grown a real appreciation for clouds, which I didn't really have before. Because
Yeah. Yeah.
partly from giving you a bit of respite from the sun. But I think just there are amazing cloud formations that we get out in the Pacific.
Yeah.
And I think it's a thing that I'll hopefully take back to everyday life. You definitely get a kind of temporary appreciation and temporary wisdom for certain things on these
Well,
sort of
also,
trips.
oh, of course you do. You've got a different perspective. I mean, when you're on a bike or when you're on a boat, it's all about momentum. And it's all about
Yeah,
that, progress, and your progress is your everything. It sets your mood, it sets your, but then the ability to look up, is extraordinary. And in everyday
yeah,
life, when you're walking around Edinburgh, you rarely properly look up. You rarely look up to see, what the architecture looks like, let alone what the clouds look like. So I think it's like,
yeah,
my fondest memories from the Atlantic was, in the middle of the night on the oars, looking up and just watching the satellites following each other across the sky, or
yeah.
just seeing some of those, just working out the constellations. And yeah, I mean,
Oh,
in
it's
the middle of
actually,
in the middle of the Atacama Desert, it's pretty amazing. That's like the Paranal Observatory. That's why they go for the darkest skies, but it's still nowhere close to the middle of the oceans.
yeah. No, it is a phenomenal thing. I think especially seeing the sunrise and the sunset, every day for it'll be over 100 days.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really amazing thing to be lucky enough to experience to have that every single day for such a long period of time.
Yeah.
I guess few people get that privilege. So I think that's one thing to be thankful for.
Yeah. What are the things, Mark, when you came back from cycling around the world, either time or the rows you've done, what are the things that you really, really enjoy when you get back? Like Ewan mentioned the idea of like temporary wisdom. It's like, because for us, it's as simple as just a stationary object that we could lean on would be like, wow, I'm dreaming of it. What are some of the top things for you, would you say, off the back of an expedition? Yeah.
I mean, you guys have done it before, so I'm sure you've got some ideas of your own. The things that you think about and daydream about when you're out there are not necessarily the things you appreciate when you get back.
Yeah.
I think part of the joy of being on an expedition is the fact that you can think every thought. You don't get distracted by technology or the next task. You've got time to dig out your deepest memory. You've got time to remember things. You've got time to imagine a different future. You've got time, and time is so precious. And what I love about expeditions is you spend your entire time sort of fixating on the finishing line, which is fundamentally important. But then actually, when you get there, because it's suddenly everyone else's emotions, and you're distracted the entire time by conversations and stuff that fills your life, it's very hard to ever get that time back to remember the things you were looking forward to. So yeah, of course you enjoy a nice glass of whiskey, time with your friends, being back with your partner, you know, whatever it is. Food is a big thing for me because expedition food's fun, but actually then when you come back, when you sit down and have a nice restaurant meal and spend time with friends, it's amazing. But I do think that there's something about the human psyche where part of the fun is the looking forwards to. So it's
Yeah.
amazing when you come back, but then but also appreciate that when you come back, it's always going to be different from what you imagined. And I always get to the end of expeditions, and the biggest emotion is actually relief. You think you'll pull back flips
Yeah.
and you'll celebrate, but kind of everyone does the celebrating for you, and your biggest emotion is just heartfelt relief. And I think that's a very human emotion when you've shouldered the responsibility of doing the thing anyway. And I think I'm often sort of rabbits in the headlights. I'm almost rabbits in the headlights at the finish going, is that it? Like, okay, I've
Yeah.
almost overthought this moment. It's something I've thought about,
Yeah.
about too much. And like, this reality isn't the thing I've thought about 10,000 times.
Totally. Yeah. No, I think that's really relatable. I think from where we're at, we're kind of actively trying. We've removed ourselves from the arrival because we the beauty I think of the last trip to the Atlantic was we had no expectations. We don't know what
Yeah.
was we hadn't even seen a video of people getting into Antigua or finishing a row. So yeah, I think we're trying to, especially at this stage, you can so easily just create this whole story about what it's going to be like. I think
Yeah.
as you just said, it's never, the reality never matches up with what you dream up on those hours. So yeah, that's really interesting to hear about actually.
And I think also what you were saying there really resonates is the kind of actually the process of the row or the adventure, the expedition itself. I really feel you get an appreciation for so many different things. I think it could be just an appreciation for really basic needs like kind of being able to have water. We've had obviously a couple of water issues, and that's suddenly become a really precious commodity. Or
Yeah.
shelter, a bed where you can sleep comfortably, or friendships that someone that you've not spoken to for a long time, loved ones. Like suddenly your appreciation just for all these things because it's a relatively hard environment, I think.
Yeah.
But also I totally agree because you've got time to think about it and really consider how those things affect your life. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's quite a profound thing in a lot of ways.
Yeah. No, it's, I think, it's the human condition, isn't it? It's what separates us from the rabbits. The fact that we do have foresight, we can imagine a different future. I mean, it allows us to dream, it allows us to work towards a different reality, but also, life is what happens in any
Yeah.
given second. And expeditions teach you that in abundance, don't they? It's that. And I think for me, the adjustment stuff's always the weird stuff that you don't really think about. I remember after the Atlantic, it was like really strange sitting on a toilet that didn't move. And because it's such an art form taking a shit when you're at sea.
It
you know
really is. It really is.
Make sure you put some water in the bucket first, make sure you don't slip, make sure you don't, I mean, like, there's big
No, I made that mistake. I think it's
there's big
first in
consequences.
the
There's
bucket.
big consequences. You don't want that stuff washing around the boat. You
Yeah. Too. I've got another question, Mark. We were talking before the call about some things that we could maybe ask you, relevant to where we find ourselves. If you were, so we're probably at about, we Marquez is 300 miles, 200 miles away, and then it's probably a few hundred miles more. So we're probably about 500 miles from the halfway mark. Where generally speaking, where do you think you are at this point in a big expedition? And if you were talking to yourself, if you were, you were suddenly tuning into your head and giving some advice or just any thoughts, what do you think they would be?
I definitely always think of like big expeds in terms of time. If you're out there for months and months, in terms of those chapters, like the first week is your honeymoon period. It's the
Yeah.
anticipation of the start, getting into the routine. Um, you know, you go through hell, don't you, physically? There's just the teething issues. It's the excitement of the start, and then there's the settling in, and it properly takes you a week, 10 days to actually sort of find that place, that mindset where you're not looking forward to it, you're actually in it. It's real, and there's lots of stuff to get used to, and then you're properly in it now. Um, but I think the danger is, and I've seen this on a lot of long expeditions that last for like 3 to 6 months, you can start to get quite complacent. I find
Yeah.
myself going, right, I've been doing this for a hell of a long time now. I got the routine, I've got this dialed. And if I think about my second cycle around the world, um, we made a lot of mistakes going across New Zealand, up, 5,500 miles across North America and Canada, because people were just like, you know, we've done this for so long, we're in such a routine. People almost started to say, well, this is easy now. And that's when mistakes happens. I remember when I was doing a 9-month expedition from Alaska to Tierra del Fuego, I came off Aconcagua, having climbed that. It was half a year into the expedition, there'd been such focus on that. And the rest of the BBC crew said, great, Mark, you've done it. And I was like, I've still got 2,000 miles to go. And they were like, yeah, but you've basically done it. And that was the loneliest 2,000 miles of my life, because in my head I was finished. In my head I was finished, but I still had like the Pampas and Patagonia and Tierra del Fuego to do. And the fact that everyone else was sort of celebrating before it was over, I found like it was such a false summit. So I think for me, just when you get over that halfway line, and I don't know why I'm telling you guys this because you know it, but like when you get over the halfway line and you're sort of getting really comfortable in it, not trying to count down, just like trying to almost be back in the mindset where you were in the first third, when you know, it almost doesn't matter how far that road is, just ride the road in front of you, because it is where mistakes can start to come into it, and you can start to your mind can start to tweak out a bit, because you're like, I'm close, but I'm not close enough, and that's when it starts to get a bit weird psychologically.
Oh, yeah. I totally, yeah. I think that's really good advice. Certainly, we're quite aware as well that as you kind of go past islands, they can have quite a big effect on the sea state, and what we've become quite used to in the last, 54 days. It's been relatively consistent. It's not been pleasant at times, but it's not been rapidly changing. Other than when you get a squall, and you've got quite a lot of warning for that coming onto the boat. But I think as we start to weave through the Pacific Islands, I think we do need to really make sure we stay on top of it, don't become complacent. I think that's pretty important. But also the mindset and not letting that slip into a place of relative comfort and feeling like we've got the routine dialed, and therefore we can kind of relax a bit.
Yeah.
I think
And
I think
obviously
actually,
you got each other. So I mean, I think you'll be able to spot when, one of if one of you starts to sort of struggle, you can pick each other up. You can have good days, bad days. I think that's knowing when to give each other space as much as you can in a small boat.
yeah, limited on space.
yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Views. Yeah.
I don't know. I think I'm conscious of how much time we're taking up of yours, and Mark, I can't say how appreciative we
So
are. Really, honestly, it's a really surreal thing to be able to have a chat with you, and like really, we're so thankful for you spending time, not just now talking, to us on this live stream or this video call, but previously as well, and all the advice you've given us over the years. So, really, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Oh, don't be daft. It's a privilege to join you guys. I think this is one of the first conversations that you're doing of this series, and no, what an absolute privilege. I mean, memories that last a lifetime. I'll always remember joining you guys in the middle of the Pacific for a live stream over a veggie chili and black rice and a gin and tonic. I'll remember this for the rest of my life. So don't be daft. It's an absolute pleasure, guys. You're doing an amazing job out there.
Well, hopefully we can join you for the gin and tonic in person when we get back.
Cannot wait. Cannot wait. Well, like we're all watching. Don't get distracted by the maddening crowds, but we are all watching, and wishing you well. I can understand a little bit about what you're going through, and it's absolutely awesome. So keep doing what you're doing. And if any of us back home on the shore crew can help, you know where we are.
Really appreciate it, Mark. Thank you.